We're today's News Talk, the world today.
Jason Goodman is an investigative journalist from Crowdsource, thetruth.org, and his handle on X is Jason Goodman NYC. That's at Jason Goodman NYC. Jason, thanks for joining us. What do you think? Because there are so many theories out there. The only thing I haven't seen is that the aliens popped in and they shot him with a ray gun. But truly, everyone has got this theory that it was deep state, it was not deep state. The other one I haven't heard is that maybe it was Donald Trump that was trying to just miss his heart, keep him alive so that he'd become the next president. I mean, there's so many things out there. What are the facts?
Well, you just pointed out some facts right there. It doesn't seem like a rifle could have been disassembled on the roof and placed into a backpack or shoved down the guy's pants, where he then jumps off a building and runs down the street. None of that seems plausible. The other thing is, there's a lot of cameras there on campus at the Utah Valley University. There was a camera being operated by Turning Point USA right behind Charlie Kirk. We haven't seen any of that footage. So those are facts. Everything else remains pretty up in the air. I've been trying to sift through the available evidence to determine, what we can figure out. I certainly haven't come to any conclusions apart from I'm fairly confident that this guy, Tyler Robinson, didn't do it.
Mm. I mean, and I heard that the bullet bounced, because I was always wondering how come he's at the front. He shoots the guy from being in front, and then the bullet did a right-hand turn, went through his neck. But they said it bounced off his vest, his bulletproof vest. What a lot of good that was, if that is the truth. Things just don't make sense, do they? In Australia, they would say it doesn't pass the pub test. And what do you think?
Well, let me address that body armor bulletproof vest question. I'm not a ballistics expert. I'm not a firearms expert. I am American. I know probably a lot of our friends in Australia think I must have 50 guns, but I have very limited experience with guns. But you can see a lot of video on a lot of people's phones, and some of it is high quality, maybe even 4K, certainly HD. Before the shooting occurred, Charlie Kirk is seen walking around. He's throwing hats. He's wearing a T-shirt. Everybody sees it's now famous that says freedom. And it appears to be either cotton or maybe, rayon or some kind of body contouring kind of synthetic. It's like a sports shirt, It's sort of clinging to the contours of his body in a way that it looks very clear that there is no body armor under there. And for the sake of argument, there are some high-tech materials, certain like executive body armor that's designed for being worn under dress clothing or under a men's suit that aren't necessarily Kevlar plates and heavy armor and all that kind of stuff. But from what I understand, first of all, that wasn't there. It's not completely invisible under a single T-shirt. That's when you're wearing a dress shirt and a jacket over it. Then it can be pretty invisible. But that type of soft body armor is designed to prevent a low caliber bullet from penetrating. It really doesn't have the type of deflective capability that would cause something to bounce like that. So I don't believe that that's what happened. Been doing a lot of investigating. I work with a variety of different other investigators, John Cullen, Zeb Boykin, lots of different people. And those guys do have much more experience than I do in firearms. My expertise lies primarily in digital imaging and image processing. I had a long career in Hollywood as a visual effects and stereoscopic cinematographer. So my understanding of camera technology and image compression technology and sort of interpreting what it is that we're seeing in some of this digital evidence that everybody is flooded with today, that's really where my strong suit is. And so by working with these other experts, we can kind of combine our capabilities to sift through some of this material and try and decipher what is true.
And of course, though, you'll be able to use the footage from the drone. Hang on, there was no footage. I turned it off just as it. Oh,
Well,
that's just,
let's talk about these drones because this is a big
terrible.
question.
But it's a terrible thing that somebody would be tampering with the evidence.
Oh
They knew
well,
exactly what's happening.
yeah, you're talking about a camera. There's someone who is seen removing an SD memory card from a camera. And just before we came on air here, I haven't verified this myself, but I saw on X, someone said that the person who removed the SD memory card from the camera, we see this person removing it on somebody else's recording. That's apparently an employee of Turning Point USA. So if that's true, I would hope that we will eventually see that footage. That's a pretty high quality camera, it looks like, right behind Charlie Kirk,
Mm.
running conceivably the whole time. We should be able to see out into the crowd, depending on the focal length and view angle of the lens. We should be able to see if there's someone on the roof shooting at him, maybe even get a good idea of maybe not who it is, but what he's wearing. Is there more than one person up there? Because you just played a video that we did see someone who has some firearms expertise talking about the difficulty, or at least the minimum amount of time it would take an experienced user to disassemble that kind of rifle. And it doesn't seem to match the amount of time between the murder of Charlie Kirk and the time we see that individual jump off the roof from a video provided by the FBI that is alleged to be a surveillance camera video. A good question is, why did they just release the part where the guy is running off the roof? It's a pretty wide shot of the whole building. Do we see him climbing up the roof? Do we see him walking around on the roof and getting down there and shooting? Do we see anybody else on the roof? The FBI seems to lose these critical minutes of surveillance videos when they're looking at Jeffrey Epstein, when they're looking at people allegedly shooting people on the roof. It's quite strange, isn't it, Mike?
No, I think it is. I think it's. I mean, and for people to think otherwise, I think it's scurrilous. They need to go to confession quickly. Not really, but it's reality, isn't it? It is reality that government people, if you're guilty of doing something, you're going to try and do everything you can to hide the evidence, to distract and hopefully avoid some sort of investigation. I'm just thinking though that if it was Turning Point USA that were supposedly and just supposedly filming, and they removed the SD card from the camera, surely, I mean, if we're talking about it, surely the FBI and other intel orgs would know that too, and that would be tampering with the evidence.
Yeah.
And you could, I mean, from that alone, you could say, if that is true, was it from within Turning Point USA that they wanted Charlie Kirk to just go?
Well, I mean, I'm reluctant to jump to a conclusion like that. We don't know why somebody would remove that memory. Perhaps they were afraid the FBI would take it and they would never
To
see it.
hide the evidence.
Well, it could be, for sure. I mean, it's a valid question, but I want to just avoid coming to that conclusion, particularly since we've seen there's already some litigation. And I'm not fearful of litigation. I'm just saying, to be fair, I would presume first that the person doing that had an innocent motive, that they wanted to preserve the evidence. Now, obviously, every day that goes by that they don't release that footage, I do become suspicious of the person who took it out and why. But let's explore this as a point of speculation for a moment, because, you know, Turning Point USA was I believe it was a nonprofit organization, but a lot of money moved through that organization, and obviously it paid a large staff. I think it was an $80 or a $90 million a year organization, and obviously Charlie had risen to international fame. Now, Crowdsource the Truth, my operation, is very, very small by comparison, but even in this, and even in previous endeavors, business endeavors that I've been involved in, there are people with bad motives who attempt to insinuate themselves to take things from the proprietor, to try to steal the business, destroy the business, become the top dog in the business. And I certainly would have to at least explore the supposition that there might have been bad actors embedded around Charlie Kirk for their own self-interests or perhaps motivated by outside parties. Obviously, Turning Point was very involved in politics, and there are a lot of dirty tricks that get played in American politics. They want to set people up, smear them. Charlie was gaining a lot of influence, and I think a lot of people feel, look, he was only 31. The guy, it's really a tragedy. The guy had a huge career ahead of him to have created something like this by the age of 31. I think there's little doubt that had he not been killed, he certainly could have run for Congress or eventually Senate or even president. And I think a lot of people felt that could have and maybe even should have happened. And perhaps parties that didn't want that could have participated. And if someone wanted to kill Charlie Kirk, certainly infiltrating his organization, getting close to him and gaining his trust would be a way that a sophisticated, sinister party would do it.
Yeah, and the other question is too, sure, removing the SD card from a camera that's behind the shooter, why was the camera there in the first place?
Well, they do a lot of media. Charlie goes around the country speaking to students on campus and doing live streams, and they're constantly putting out videos. So he had a lavalier microphone clipped to his shirt, and I presume they were recording the event to put it on their social media channels and their YouTube channels. And I've been to parties and events that they've done, and they have big screens showing video content from all the things they do throughout the year. So I'm sure he had a whole media department whose job it is just record whatever he's doing, get those viral moments, put them out on the internet so that they can, spread their word and grow their organization.
And very, very, very much, it could have been that way. But I'm just thinking though, okay, so if you're saying that this is the cameras there, shooters in that frame, also Charlie's in that frame. Surely they'd notice someone with a gun near their camera, because you know what cameras are worth. I mean, they're not cheap, especially good ones. From that distance, you're going to need some good visuals. So therefore, they're not. Here's this. Imagine this beautiful camera. Oh, don't worry about anybody there. No one's going to steal it. And they would steal it. So that you always have someone watching that camera to make sure no one's going to steal it.
I've done a lot of event production and broadcast work and things like that. So, I think the camera was safe because it was behind Charlie in this sort of controlled area that the general public couldn't really get to, while the event was under control. Obviously, after the bedlam, maybe they might have had that concern, take the camera down, get the memory so somebody doesn't steal it. But what I would say is, keep in mind, $80 or $90 million a year is a lot of money, but this is one individual event, and it wasn't the type of production budget that you would expect from something like ESPN or ABC News or a national broadcaster in Australia. These weren't manned cameras or personed cameras, excuse me, I don't want to get misgendered or whatever, but these weren't cameras with operators on them necessarily. And I will say, sometimes when you're out in the field, it's daytime, there's a lot of light reflecting on screens, you don't necessarily see all the details on screen while you're live that the average person might expect you to see. And certainly after the fact, when you're in the editing room, almost always you're going to notice things in the frame that you might have missed on the day, as they say, when you're rolling. So to speculate along with you, Mike, it is my opinion, yes, it is highly suspicious and worthy of suspicion. And the person who took that memory card from the camera should be, if they haven't already been, questioned by law enforcement. And frankly, it's tampering with a crime scene. So if they do not immediately cooperate by providing that footage, if they say it's lost, it's deleted, I would think, I'm not a lawyer, but I would think that's a prosecutable, that's a prosecutable bit of action to take the memory of a recording of a murder. That's a big deal. And you know what? In court, I do believe if you tamper with and destroy evidence, it does allow you to take what's called an adverse supposition. You can presume that the only reason to do that is that the evidence on there was incriminating to the party who took it.
But the other thing too is, I mean, again, all scuttlebutt. I mean, of course, when they found Robinson, there was, the SWAT squad were there. There were 400 police, helicopters, even a tank. And hang on, no, they let him give himself up. I take that back. So they let him give himself up. Truly, the whole thing is orchestrated. I mean, if you're going after, can you tell me, in the history of mankind, when have they said, look, we know you shot someone, he's a very famous person, do you talk about it with your folks first? And then when you've come to a decision, we're waiting for you out. Just come to the police station, we'll give you the respect you deserve. That is living in the land of fairies.
I agree with you. It's very implausible. Now, Mike, tonight's the first time you and I have ever met, but you look to be about the same age as me. I presume you grew up in Australia. I don't know how much you know about the JFK assassination, but I've studied it quite a bit. It happened before I was born, but I was very intrigued by it. For most of my life, it was a pretty isolated incident. I mean, we also have the Robert Kennedy assassination and the Martin Luther King assassination, but those are generally far less studied by even American historians. And I think what's happening now is, particularly in the wake of the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt against Donald Trump, and now this Charlie Kirk assassination, we start to have this kind of body of evidence. So if we let's just start with the JFK assassination. We've got this guy, Lee Harvey Oswald, who's captured in a movie theater watching a movie an hour after the incident. And right away, they say, oh, we've got the guy. And he tells the police, these were the early days of live video and news coverage. And on a film reel, he tells the police, I didn't shoot anybody. I'm a patsy. A lot of people might not know this, but it wasn't 1910, it was 1963. They did have paraffin chemical tests to determine if somebody had fired a gun, and the Dallas police tested Oswald and determined he did not fire a rifle that day. So it's this rush to judgment for a patsy. And when I say, people might have flinched or cringed, or I don't know the nature of your audience's response to the types of things I would say, but if people had a negative reaction to me saying that I don't think that Tyler Robinson did it, what I'm saying is I think he's a stand-in and a patsy and a fall guy for whoever actually did it, just like Lee Harvey Oswald was, just like Thomas Crooks was in Butler, Pennsylvania. There's a large amount of evidence that each of these individuals were not the criminal perpetrators. And frankly, the video that you played at the top of this discussion with the guy talking about the disassembly of the rifle is in and of itself a piece of evidence that Tyler Robinson didn't do it, because he just simply didn't have the time. We don't see a guy running with a gun, throw the gun off the roof, jump down off the roof. By the way, they played early, I haven't seen this very much since, but on the day that Charlie was shot, they played a video of Tyler Robinson on somebody's home, doorbell cam, their security camera, where he's walking through the neighborhood and he's limping. And the explanation was, oh, well, that's because he's got the rifle shoved down his pants. I'm thinking, really? It's not because he jumped off the roof of a building? Who could do that and not be injured? It seems like a big jump to me.
It was a very tall building. I mean, in many cases, he would have broken his back or his leg. So
you'd think.
I think what saved him was the grass. I think it sort of cushioned him a bit. But you're going to hurt yourself, your ankle. A natural thing is your ligaments will stretch.
Right.
As we wind this up, and I've enjoyed this immensely, do you think we'll ever know the truth?
I don't. I think we'll get close to it, and it's not going to come from the government. It's going to come from the type of research that I'm doing on Crowdsource the Truth, and the people who come on my show and the other guests that you have on your show that we talk about. We're going to look at this evidence. People have become very sophisticated. I do want to touch on one thing. You had spoken about drone footage at the beginning of this, and we are starting to hear that Turning Point might have had a drone in the sky at one point. that's a possibility. If I may, I'd like to just show you something very quickly that I discovered. Do we have a moment for this?
Yep, sure. Yep.
So this is something that I discovered. Looks like an item smoking in the sky. And then we've got something else that flies by. It just zips right by in the frame. Let me step through this for your viewers here. There's one thing that looks to me like a UAV with some lithium ion lithium polymer batteries that are about to catch fire. And then we have this thing. It's got wings, so maybe it's a bird, but can a bird shoot vertically, in a diagonal without flapping its wings? I don't see any wings flapping there. And the thing is going from the middle of the frame up to off the top corner. We do have certain types of falcons in Utah, but those generally can only move that quickly when they're diving downward. They don't shoot upward like that super quickly. So there's some questions about what sort of technology was around in the sky. And to be clear, I'm not saying that these drones were used in the killing of Charlie Kirk. I think they might have been surveillance drones. They might have been electronic warfare drones to disable unauthorized. And when I say unauthorized, just people recording it. We had a live streamer whose live stream was disabled 1 second before Charlie Kirk was shot. That's Adam Bartholomew. If he hadn't been recording on his iPad simultaneously, we would not have seen any of this drone footage or anything. And I suspect a Bluetooth low energy exploit was used to disable the live stream the moment before the shot was fired.
We're going way over, but I'm interested. Explain what you mean by that.
So there was an exploit discovered by an IT security company called Oligo Security, and they announced this in April. Now, just a few days ago, this was actually after the 10th of September, there was an update to iOS that might have fixed this, but this is telling us that there is a zero-click remote code execution defect, an exploit that can be used to penetrate an iOS device like an iPhone or an iPad or anything running the Apple AirPlay protocol or any of these various things. And what they can do is this exploit can overwhelm the device with Bluetooth requests, cause it to crash, cause it to do all kinds of unexpected things. And like I said, things that could be UAV drones are seen flying around. This guy, Adam Bartholomew, he's got a son who goes to Utah Valley University. He was live streaming. His live stream cut about 1 second before the shot was fired. The SD card in his camera failed. He had a third redundant backup recording going to an iPad. He's a very clever guy, to an iPad in his backpack. And because that was connected by a USB wire, it continued recording. So this Bluetooth wireless exploit can't affect the wired recording, but this is a known exploit that a professional IT security company told us about in April, didn't get patched until like yesterday. And Charlie Kirk was shot over a week ago. So I suspect that electronic warfare was being deployed on the crowd to reduce the possibility that anybody might record video of what is going on. And now we've had this very controlled release of videos. We don't see the video behind Charlie. They probably didn't want us to see Adam Bartholomew's video. We've had a couple of low resolution, very poor quality videos that were released that really in many ways are not suitable for, forensic evaluation to determine what happened.
It's absolutely fascinating. I could talk all day. I can't. I'll be in trouble. Invitation, come back again. Let's look at more of these things. Because all that we're hearing from government or the police or the FBI, it's all open to conjecture, for want of a better word.
Scrutiny.
It could be anything. And the only thing the government haven't suggested is that alien craft that they think is heading towards Earth, maybe they got here early.
Yeah.
I'd show you that. But from what the government is telling us and the police are telling us, that would have as much weight as what they're telling us. I mean, you think the FBI have had enough practice in lying to the public, and they still can't do it properly. But for releasing information, they may not, and it might, as you said, we may never know the full story and exactly who did it. Was it the butler? Always a pleasure, Jason. When I'm saying always a pleasure, first time, it is a pleasure. And I would love to do this again and look at more aspects of the Charlie Kirk assassination, and look at maybe why government does this. Why, for example, did an organisation want him gone? It wasn't the individual. Why do they want him gone? Look at the Donald Trump almost assassination when they got him in the ear. Why are these things happening? There are many times a logical reason for it. We just got to find that reason. Jason Goodman, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
They can go to my website at crowdsourcethetruth.org. I'm also on X at the address that you mentioned, at Jason Goodman NYC. My main Crowdsource the Truth account on X is at JG, like Jason Goodman, _CSTT, like Crowdsource the Truth. And Mike, thank you very much for inviting me on. It's a pleasure meeting you and speaking with you.
And likewise too. It's just absolutely fantastic. Jason Goodman here on The World Today.